The area I am most excited about is still the area that's in front of us with respect to mobile. I think the ability to get computing everywhere, anywhere, that extends into Internet of Things, that extends obviously, around the world. I think it is yet to even show us how our lives might be changed and the different things we can do that weren't done before. So I think we're still in the early days of that. I think when you combine mobile with the other trend that I think is very interesting, which is machine learning, we think of it as automation by algorithm, which I even think is a lot earlier than mobile. We start to see early applications of that today. What machines not only can predict for us, but learn and therefore predict more, in terms of where we're going, what we're doing, connect disparate elements of our lives to make our lives more effective. I think that's a huge trend that we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. The area that I think is overhyped is the whole, social media side of things, partly because how much time in our days do we have to use social media? I think the smart thing, because I think social media is going to be a huge part of our lives going forward, not one to be ignored, is now social media in Social Media 2.0. How do I become effective? Social media is probably not going to be spending as much time going wide as much as going deep and thinking about how social media, Mighty Bell presented earlier today, and I think that's a perfect example of social media thinking about how to become more effective and in fact maybe narrower, but perhaps deeper. So I think social media is big, but I think it's going to get narrow before it gets bigger. When we think about investing, we really do think on two dimensions. And it's not just founders. We actually start by looking at markets. And I do think you have to start in a big neighborhood. But not, and you want to be, of course, just at the point where a small early idea is just about to take off, where that slope of the curve, it's gone from experimentation to something that's really big. You'll have wind at your back. I think that's the number one thing we look at. So we look at markets and trends, number one. But the founder and the CEO is so important. And I think it's both this combination of passion. It doesn't have to be 20 years worth of experience. And by the way, it doesn't need to be, if they have a lot of experience, somebody who's only experienced success. We like people who've come up against challenges. Because guess what? That's the life of a startup. That's what venture investing is about. It's, fail fast, keep learning. So, think of failure as a teaching opportunity and a teaching tool. But what we look for in founders is, number one, passion about that sector that they think's about to grow, their ability to attract people. We do think in our portfolio, the best and most successful companies are those where the founder stays at the helm all the way through that curve. And if we can do it, we're looking for a founder themselves who can scale. It's more common for success, and if you look in history, that the founder does stay in the company. It's the hardest decision because it's their baby. It's one that you take with regret often, and you should. Because you are really separating a child and a parent in some ways, therefore an unnatural act. What I have found the most effective thing to do is to make that change earlier, to do an and, not an or. Look at Google as a perfect example of not a company I was involved with, but one we all read about in the press. The fact that, Larry and Sergey were there in early days, that, they had, leadership that really helped them, and then ultimately took back over. We have found in a lot of our companies, and perhaps the best founders, realize I'm really good at one thing, I want to complement myself. Maybe I become CTO, maybe I become chairman, maybe I bring in a COO. That's the way the founder can complement themselves and they can scale, an and, not an or. And maybe over time, they don't need to have, Eric Schmidt any longer as an example. And Eric obviously having been quite valuable, but they're ready to take the reins over. So I think that's what we look for ultimately. If we need something, make it an and, not an or. First of all, they can't be a entrepreneur. They have to really believe in what they do. They have to think that this really matters, and they're absolutely passionate about doing it, no matter how many people tell them it's a silly thing to do. They're not doing it because they should. They're doing it because they can't help themselves. Number two is they have to be very good at understanding and incorporating failure as part of their learning. Fail fast, be open about it. That's a way for your team to be effective about learning as well. So understand failure is all about iterating to success. If you start in the right quadrant, and you iterate, you'll get to the right place. That's actually a great start. You're never going to know day one what you want to be. The third thing, and this is a really interesting one, people that are comfortable and confident enough to overhire early on. I just talked to an entrepreneur in the hall who said he's kind of nervous because he's hiring people that report to him. He's overhiring. And he's nervous because he said, among other things, I don't know if what they're telling me is true or not because they know more about their area than I do. That's the sign of success. Keith Crack at DocuSign said it today. He has 1,000 people today. He's hiring people that can manage a company with 10,000 people. Overhire, because guess what? They'll fill in that gap to 10,000 people. They will help you get there faster. Your job as CEO is to help bring that all together and help and empower them to be really successful. Of course, I know the best about the companies in our portfolio, so I'm biased in that regard, or my knowledge, I'd say, is biased somewhat. I actually think DocuSign has the opportunity to do that. This whole concept of digital transaction management, this idea that you and I can be doing business together, we can be, you might be a consumer, I'm a small individual person helping you out, I can be 2 Fortune 500 companies doing business. We're all global now, we're all doing business real time, back to our mobile phones, back to everything being instant gratification, that we can do that and manage that real time, really sort of becoming the Visa of how you do business, I think is really kind of the vision that they have there. I really think that's one, and frankly, I love industries that A, have the chance to be global, B, can be transformative, and B, frankly, where there's not a lot of competition and it's something every person in this room is going to use today. I think that's really exciting, so I think they have the opportunity to be huge.